Hello, this is Cryptolyze. I hope you are well. This Tuesday, 19 December 2023. Today we are going to talk about KASPA's crypto. As usual, we will dissect this video into two parts. A fundamental part, we are going to come back to what KASPA is, its origins, its news, and then we are going to look at the graphs to project ourselves in the short, medium, long term on purchase prices, sale prices, and that starts right away. If you want to train and really enjoy bull running, it's simple. There is perfect, complete, free training available. It's through an educational journey that teaches you everything about blockchain, crypto, investment, technical analysis, and trading. All this for free in comments and descriptions. You have exercises, multiple choice questions, modules, videos, guides, everything to support you in your progress. KASPA is a level 1 blockchain based on proof of work. So on this, we are going to talk about blockchain to simplify, but in this case, it is a DAG. And to go a little further, it is a notion of DAG block in which we will have blocks which are validated in parallel and which will eventually join together into a single blockchain. In fact, it is a composition of a multitude of asynchronous blocks which are offset from each other with a finality of 1 second. This is a little bit of what we can find elsewhere in this conception of DAG. A little bit in Phantom also with this notion of ABFT that we find, and which is precisely the evolution for me of the notion of blockchain, in which obviously when we really want to have scalability and have a rapid finality, we are obliged to move towards a consensus of DAG, therefore which is at the same time logical. Besides, KASPA was basically built to be a monetary base in which we will have a transaction finality which is very fast, an instantaneousness of 1 second, and scalability in which we are capable of being able to multiply the number of blocks which are validated in parallel, and therefore something which is almost infinite. On that note, we say to ourselves that it's almost perfect, which is at the same time not far from the truth in terms of design, all based on a notion of proof orc, which is relatively secure because it is a basic proof F orc. And next to it we have the notion of block DAG, which allows for scalability and a little bit of everything else. This is what a block DAG looks like, in which we will have validation parallelism, before having a form of grouping and a systematic structuring of this style, where we have groupings and increases in parallelism when we need to power an ability to scale. So it's really a very big strength in terms of design. After all, it's something that we already know. More or less, it is a form of evolution of what was already existing in certain other blockchains, in which DAG is already used in block management and block conceptualization. There are some that are asynchronous, there are some that are parallel, so there it is a form like any other but which works rather well. In terms of tokenomics, we have something that is rather clean with a very big show from the start, and then we will move slowly and tenderly towards the maximum supply, which will be at 28 billion KAS, 28.7 billion KAS, and there currently we are almost at 22 billion KAS, which have been produced, and therefore which are currently in circulation, with a diluted market cap which is close to 3 billion, and which is relatively high compared to the TVL if we are used to thinking in a form of compatible EVM blockchain, therefore a blockchain which aims to make smart contracts. While this is not all the style, okay, KASPA, at least in its design, is a blockchain which aims to be an easy and efficient means of payment, with an almost instantaneous finality and almost instantaneous scalability, okay? It's about designing the infrastructure to be able to do the rest. Does this mean that there will be no smart contract? So as I told you in the last video, there are going to be smart contracts. It's logical, it's obvious, and it's normal, and it's something that has been more or less ruled. It was said here that there is no tokenization object, there is no smart contract, there is no layer 2, but yet, okay? For now. And in fact, we can clearly see that the reflection which is currently taking place, particularly at the level of Discord, that in fact there is brainstorming at the level of smart contracts. They asked questions around smart contracts. What are that we wanted as a type of smart contract? Clearly, the majority of KASPA users, or at least people who follow KASPA, want to have decentralized finance around KASPA, which is indeed one of the most important means. To be able to generate TVL, to be able to actually generate attraction at the protocol level. And as they say, for the moment, they absolutely want to finish and really finish their evolution at the node level in Rust mainly. And they also want having actually finalized their means of payment through proof of work, and which is the very launch project of KASPA. So KASPA was developed in Rust, so a very big technology in which Rust is part of the text. And the strongest programming languages, the most complicated certainly also to handle, but also necessarily the most resilient. And this is important when you build an infrastructure of this style. Rust, as a reminder, is also used in Solana, in his conceptualization and implementation of Solana. So it's something that is robust in terms of building infrastructure and smart contracts subsequently. The fact that it is in Rust, the advantage is that if we have smart contracts which arrive during 2024, 2025, it is that we will already have a community which will be agile in Rust and in the design of smart contracts using the Solana ecosystem to potentially have developers and decentralized applications that could migrate from one to the other. I think there will necessarily be work in smart contracts and in design. But we could have an evolution. Another point regarding KASPA and its evolution is that they have an approach to the management of smart contracts which will be different from what we can know in Solidity, from what we can know precisely in EVM compatible, and which could perhaps even get a little closer to Solana. Still in this reflection, I think that Rust plays a huge role. The idea is to offer the possibility of having smart contracts which are resilient and which behind have the capacity to interface, with potentially an overlay at KASPA. And the idea behind the overlay is still very present, in which we could very well have a blockchain which is monolithic, therefore KASPA, and which itself produces its own overlay, therefore its own role P. Whether it is optimistic or whether it is ZK, it doesn't matter, or another tech, why not? But the idea is to already think about the notion of scalability, of the design of what can be carried out. Once again, as is clearly stated, it is a notion of brainstorming. There is first the desire to be able to finish the instantiation of the infrastructure and then to be able to move forward. So there are other small points that we need to pay attention to. It is that we define KASPA as being the evolution of Bitcoin, whereas for me it is different. We are in a technology which is once again different. And what makes Bitcoin strong is not so much its technology itself, if it is the purity of its original technology, its simplicity, but it is also its decentralization. Understand that it is currently the protocol that is the most decentralized because it has resilience, because there are a lot of validating nodes, because there are a lot of actors who are present in the mining, and that's what makes it resilient. That's what makes it secure. That's it. Okay. It's not so much the technology in itself, although the technology in itself being that it is very simple. We obviously reduce the area of attack and we reduce its ability to power, being hacked and being able to have problems. So it's also two things. It's the more we go into complexity, the more risks we have, and the more risks we have, the more functionality we will have, but therefore the more attacks we can have. So that being said, I can't wait to see KASPA with smart contracts arriving, because in this case it could be really very interesting, like a tokenization blockchain specialized in, why not RWA, or behind having an infrastructure to carry data, artificial intelligence, because we have almost infinite scalability with low production costs and so on. So we could have something that is really solid. It must have additional utility, and that I think will happen at some point. So concretely in terms of courses, where are we at the level of KASPA? KASPA, as a reminder, when I made the presentation video, we were more or less in this zone. I explained to you that particularly when we arrived in a resistance zone like this, there was a good chance to have a form of rejection. We had two things. In this case, we had an acceleration, liquidity gain, breakout, retest, and then we have a bearish break to take a breath. I was expecting a much lower KASPA anyway. We see my purchase zones for strengthening at the level of the KASPA, therefore very low. Why? Because quite simply these are opportunity zones. The principle is the following. That is to say that when we look at the general evolution of the price, the idea is to buy below 0.5, below 618. These are prices of reinforcement or opportunity purchase in which we are underpricing. This is exactly what I'm currently looking for in tokens. But nevertheless, KASPA, we have a big acceleration. And we see that when we had the break of this resistance zone, very important resistance zone, we took off because we are in a price discovery. And when we are in a price discovery, we accelerate very quickly, very strongly, especially with big candles. And it is one of the big performers of the year, 2023. We must remember them. The big performers of the year 2023 have a good chance of having big performances also when the next bull run is set up. And therefore it can be interesting on big retracements to re-enter or strengthen your position. We just have to take two things into consideration. One is that we find ourselves in a dynamic where people have already made big multiples. When we look at people who have made almost 99,000 if I look at the lowest. But if I look at the people who have potentially returned to these areas, we are already on 3,000. So many people have started to take profits. That's what we see there, which is completely normal. We have a start of distribution with a BC, Arkansas, ST, SOW. We could have a UT, UTAD. We could just have an equal sign retest here. So something that could look like this part there. Go back up, retest, hop, do that again, go back up, retest, do that again before either doing a reaccumulation and starting up again, or breaking bearish, going to retest a little bit lower, doing the accumulation and starting again agreement. The distribution and reaccumulation phase can be more or less heavy, depending on the volume that is shed by those who have made multiples and reinforcement volumes. There we see that we went to retest a small order block here, and we filled in a large part of imbalance which was there. So we have a retest area which is rather classic, and we see that it has been cleaned up. Are we necessarily going to look lower? I want to tell you it depends on the entire market. Although KASPA manages to be very resilient compared to BTC, if we indeed have a sell the news on BTC ETFs, there is a good chance that we have assets behind that breathe. And so at that moment we will potentially have opportunities with the imbalance which is found here and the imbalance which is found there. These are opportunities that we must not miss, okay? We must understand that here we had our break, we have our validation here of a strong actor. We are starting to have information on, and the validation of information on the implementation of smart contract. So that means the programmability on a blockchain which will be instantiated very strong, so we could have big buyout opportunities. And once again, it's not because we didn't enter zones like this, in which the risk-reward was not interesting. We could enter the breakout as I told you said. And as I say, regularly when we make a rupture here, it can be interesting to enter into the case of the rupture, but during the retest of the resistance, we do not enter. We have a very high risk when we are on the resistance of having a bearish breakout, because we are on a resistance. So we must first break the resistance, retest, something we did here during the break on a small time frame. Because here I am in 3 days, but on a small time frame, we did the little retest. And there was an entry to accompany the movement of discovery in which we done, already just on this movement, if we look, we have, is doing 190, a very strong movement, and it's normal that we have parabolic movements like that, to have breathing. But that doesn't mean that we're going to go back very low, it simply means that we are in a breathing phase, we can very well instantiate ourselves in this part. Do a little retest again. Why not? Before leaving again, it depends on the overall market. Generally, when it's like that, we are taking a back profit. We're going to have a buyout zone, and then we could leave. So in terms of targets, what is interesting is that here we are in a notion of price discovery. So we are really on a total discovery. This total discovery for me, I will put it on a really notion of market cap. We are on a market cap which is around 3 billion, we will say a little bit below 3 billion. I think it's a blockchain with smart contracts that can arrive very, very quickly in the region of 50, 60, 70 billion dollars. On the establishment of a centralized financing or tokenization ecosystem. I think this is the next evolution of KASPA, and if we really manage to validate this and set up something like this in the middle of a bull run, we can achieve a very high level of market cap, which can previously surpass the Solana that we were able to know, or even finally during the previous bull run, even go for much higher targets, and therefore enter the top 10 in the top 5. Currently for me, has the necessary elements to be able to do it. This was validated to me during this cycle, in which there is a certain amount of information that I was able to validate at the level of different developments. I have perspective on of the arrival of the utility, in which I have an infrastructure that is solid. I have DVs who have shown that they are capable of delivering construction elements that are really solid. So for me, yes, we can aim for fairly high targets. And what this represents, simply multiply the current cap mark by the evolution that we are going to have. If we go to 30 billion, that means we do 1 times 10. If we go to 60, that means we do 1 times 20 and so on. All right, understand the evolution that may occur. Are there any risks related to this? Well, yes, obviously there are always risks. It really depends on the level of purchase you want to make. Here we can have a very nice entry, but we must take into consideration that we can retest this level. How can we retest this level of rupture based on what will happen on BTC, on the general crypto market? And the weight of US regulations on all cryptos that I think we will have a 2024 year, which will be focused on regulation, and at the same time at the heart of American politics in which we will have the elections, don't forget, in 2024, in which things might shake up. I hope you liked this video. If so, don't forget to leave me a like and a comment. It always makes me very happy, and we'll see you tomorrow 7 for the daily.